Picture two people standing in the rain. The first is holding a large bucket. The rain fills it quickly, but the bucket has 100 small holes, most of them invisible, individually harmless. By the time the storm ends, the bucket is empty. He carried water all day and kept none of it. The second person is holding a small cup, solid, no holes. The rain is lighter for her, but every drop she catches, she keeps. When the cup is full, she pours it into a jar, then another jar, then a barrel. At the end of the storm, the man with the large bucket is thirsty. The woman with the small cup has enough water to last the winter. This is not a story about income. It is a story about loss. A 31-year-old teacher in Osaka earned a modest salary. By most external measures, she did not earn enough to save. Her colleagues assumed the same, and yet at 36, she had more financial stability than any of them. Without a promotion, without a side income, without a dramatic change in circumstances. When her closest friend asked how, she showed her a small notebook she carried everywhere. Not an app, not a spreadsheet, a physical notebook with a pen, and a method that a Japanese journalist named Hani Motoko had published in 1904, 120 years before financial influencers discovered that money management could be sold as content. The method is called Kakeibo, and what makes it work has nothing to do with discipline or sacrifice. It has to do with how the brain actually processes spending and what happens when you make the invisible visible. The real problem: why money disappears without permission. Before the method, it is worth understanding why the bucket leaks in the first place. Most people assume they overspend because they lack discipline. The research suggests something more specific and more fixable. Modern transactions are designed to be painless. Tap a card, click buy now, subscribe monthly. The money leaves without friction, without ceremony, without the brain registering a loss. This is not accidental. Companies have spent billions removing the psychological cost of spending because a costless transaction is a transaction that happens faster and more often. Research on what behavioral economists call the pain of paying shows that the brain processes cash payments differently from card payments, activating the insular cortex, the region associated with physical discomfort, in a way that card transactions do not. The result is not just psychological, it is behavioral. People who pay with cash consistently spend less than people who pay with cards, even when the amounts are identical and the items are the same. Digital payments have essentially removed the pain of paying from modern life, and without that signal, the brain cannot accurately track what it is spending. The bucket develops holes not from carelessness, but from a system specifically designed to make the holes invisible. Kakeibo reintroduces the signal, not by forcing cash, by forcing writing. The method, 4 questions before the month begins. Kakeibo begins on the first day of every month, not with categories or targets, with 4 questions, answered by hand in a physical notebook. The first question: how much do I have available? Not approximately, precisely. Income minus every fixed expense, rent, utilities, subscriptions, loan payments, equals the actual number available for the month. Most people operate on an approximate number. The gap between approximate and precise is where the first holes appear. The teacher described writing this number for the first time as uncomfortable. It was smaller than she had assumed, and that discomfort was information. The first honest look at the actual playing field. The second question, how much do I want to save? This question comes before any spending, not after. Kakeibo removes the savings from the available pool before the month begins. What remains is the actual spending limit. Research on pre-commitment, making a binding decision before the moment of temptation, shows it is one of the most reliable methods for changing financial behavior. The decision to save is made once in a calm moment, rather than continuously across 30 days of competing impulses. The third question, how much am I spending and on what? Kakeibo divides spending into 4 categories that are more honest than most systems use. Survival, essential costs that cannot be eliminated. Wants, discretionary spending that can be reduced. Culture, books, courses, experiences that genuinely enrich. Unexpected, the category most budgets fail to include, and the one that most reliably breaks them. Every evening, 3 minutes. Receipts written by hand into the 4 categories. Not to judge, to see. The fourth question, how can I improve? Asked at the end of the month, not as self-criticism, but as observation. Where did the spending go that was not planned? What does the pattern reveal about where stress goes, where boredom goes, where impulse goes? The Kakeibo is not a restriction system. It is a self-knowledge system. The teacher described her first completed month as the first time she had ever actually seen her own financial life. The numbers had not changed. Her understanding of them had changed completely. Why writing by hand changes the brain's relationship with money. The most counterintuitive element of Kakeibo, the physical notebook, the handwriting, the pen, is also the most important. Most people who discover Kakeibo assume the writing is a preference or tradition. It is neither. It is the mechanism. Research on the encoding specificity of handwriting versus typing shows that physically writing something activates deeper processing in the brain than typing the same information. The motor cortex is involved. The visual system tracks the formation of each letter. The content is processed as an event rather than as data entry. The result is stronger encoding, better recall, and, critically for Kakeibo, a qualitatively different relationship with what is being written. A purchase written by hand is experienced differently than a number entered into an app. The app records the transaction. The notebook makes you a witness to it. And being a witness to your own spending, actually present for it, with a pen in your hand, changes the experience of spending in the same way the pain of paying changed it with cash. The teacher described the first week of writing as the week she realized how much she had been spending on things she could not remember buying. Not dramatic purchases, small ones. Coffee when she was tired. Delivery when she did not want to cook. Convenience fees she had never consciously agreed to pay. Written down in her own handwriting, they became real in a way they had never been on a screen. Try this. For the next 7 days, write every purchase by hand immediately after making it. Not in an app, on paper. Notice whether the act of writing changes how you feel about the purchase before you even finish writing it. The 30-day list. How to stop buying what you do not actually want. The most powerful technique in the Kakeibo system is also the simplest. When you want something that is not a survival need, you do not buy it. You write it on a separate list at the back of the notebook. You note the date. You note why you wanted it. Then you wait 30 days. After 30 days, you look at the list. Most items will no longer seem necessary, and most people cannot remember why they wanted them. The wanting has passed. The purchase was not made. The money was kept. The neuroscience of why this works connects to the dopamine reward system. The wanting of something, the anticipation, activates dopamine release. The buying of it produces a brief spike followed by rapid normalization. The cycle requires another purchase to restart. But if the purchase is delayed, the dopamine spike of anticipation eventually subsides without requiring the purchase to complete. The wanting passes. Research on what behavioral economists call the cooling off effect shows that the majority of impulsive purchase intentions, items chosen in the moment, driven by immediate desire, are not acted upon when a mandatory delay is introduced. The desire was real, but it was temporary. And temporary desire, treated as permanent, is where most discretionary spending goes. The teacher kept her 30-day list for a year. At the end of the year, she counted how many items she had actually purchased after the waiting period. It was less than 15% of what she had written down. The other 85% had simply passed. Desires that felt urgent in the moment and irrelevant a month later. Try this. Start a 30-day list today. Every non-essential thing you want to buy, write it down with the date instead of buying it. After 30 days, look at the list honestly. Notice how much of it you still want and how much of it reveals what you were actually feeling when you wanted it. Wealth is a ratio, not a number. The deepest insight in the Kakeibo tradition, and the one most financial advice misses, is encoded in a simple observation that Hani Motoko made in 1904, and that research has since confirmed repeatedly. Wealth is not how much you earn. It is the gap between what you earn and what you spend. A person who earns $200,000 and spends $200,000 has zero wealth. A person who earns $40,000 and spends $25,000 has $15,000 a year of genuine financial freedom. And over a decade, something that cannot be bought with a large salary alone, time that belongs to them. The teacher never received a raise that transformed her situation. What transformed her situation was widening the gap. Finding, through Kakeibo, that the leaks in her bucket were significant enough that closing them changed the ratio entirely. She was not earning more. She was losing less. And losing less, compounded over 5 years, produced something that looked from the outside like financial luck. It was not luck. It was a notebook and a pen and 120 years of Japanese wisdom about the relationship between visibility and financial behavior. The bucket with 100 holes does not need more rain. It needs the holes found and closed. And the first step toward closing them is simply to see them clearly, honestly, in your own handwriting, one line at a time. Try this. Calculate your current ratio, the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Then ask, if you closed the 3 largest leaks in your spending, what would the ratio become? That number, not your salary, is what your financial future is actually built on. 1 notebook, 1 pen, 4 questions at the start of every month. How much do I have? How much do I want to save? How much am I spending? and on what? How can I improve? Hani Motoko published this system in 1904 for people who needed their money to actually work. Not when circumstances improved, not when income increased, but now, with what was already there. The teacher in Osaka did not earn her way to financial stability. She found it by stopping the leaks, by making visible what had been invisible, by introducing friction where the system had removed it, by writing down what the screen had allowed her to ignore. The bucket with 100 holes and the small solid cup are not different sizes of income. They are different relationships with what you already have. Pick up the pen. If this resonated, subscribe. We explore the psychology of how you think, feel, and live every week.